The feminist movement has failed women and men by extension. It promised women freedom, equality, fairness, and gave them something completely different. The opposite of those, actually. If we look around in the world today at families, women and men by extension, you'll hardly come across a woman who is relaxed, who is content, happy, light, not bitter, not exhausted. What you'll see is the opposite. So this is something that has been happening very gradually, as any other agenda where we are given something, we are made to perceive that as such, let's say freedom, liberation, but then what it really is the exact opposite of that. And at this point, it's not important whether the beginnings of the feminist movement were genuine, and of course there were authentic, honest, pure beings, both men and women, who wanted just basic human decency, equal rights, opportunities, kindness, and all that falls under the category of basic human decency. And there's never a question about that. However, what really happened is women were made to become like men. They were told that, your feminine, the femininity, all the things that have been associated traditionally with womanhood are all beneath you. They're not good. They're not. They pull you down. They are not good for you. They're inferior to this other thing that's the masculine, that's superior, that's good, that's fair, that's right, whatever, all the positive. So underneath it all, however, what the pattern has been is this time-old method of dividing people and conquering them. So any campaign, any so-called revolution, any movement that brings division needs to be very, very carefully scrutinized and never taken at face value. And that's exactly what happened with the feminist movement over time, which was a very, very tragic, terrible division that was artificially engineered between men and women, who now became rivals, who became enemies. And it's very easy to control someone when they are weak in that way and divided. So today you look around, you see women acting like men, walking like men, talking like men, working like men, dressing like men, interacting with life like men, and being miserable as a result. Now, what's the problem? I want to start by just highlighting this very essential fact that nothing in nature is isolated. There's no standalone femininity. There's no standalone masculinity. There's nothing. This is a core principle from the teachings of the Buddha that we learn, that nothing in nature is isolated. Everything is relational. Everything is interactional. So you look at one thing, that the definition of that thing is only possible through interaction with something else. In the animal kingdom, how ecosystems interact, animals interact. Within the species, we look at, for example, division of labor within the species, the male and the female. How you never come across a species, to my knowledge, where you see both the male and the female doing the exact tasks. Normally we see the female looking after the offspring, the staying close to the offspring, providing that physical proximity, warmth, literally. And the male, you normally see more action-oriented, protection-oriented, go get, food or raw materials for building the nest, this and that. So there's very clear division of labor, division of tasks in nature. And it works beautifully because different animals within their species, they complete each other. There's no competition within the couple, let's put it that way, in the animal kingdom. There is collaboration, there is cooperation, there is completion. One completes the other. There is a specialization where the female is specialized in certain tasks, the male is specialized in others, what they do well, what they do really good. And each performs their evolutionarily developed skills beautifully. And it becomes just like two hands that you need to wash your hands, you need both, which are attached to the body, this organism, and which contributes to the harmonious, equilibrial functioning of the whole organism. What we have today in the human society is two hands fighting each other. Two hands have been blinded to forget, to not see that they're part of the same body, which is the relationship, which is very sad. And you see this time and again in couples, in families, where what we have now is competition between men and women. So women were lied to. They were told that first of all, they were blinded from this complementarity that is so natural, that is so harmonious, that is so ancestral. And because again, the male and the female, they do not function in isolation. It's all interactional. The male is male because of the female, interactionally, relationally, and vice versa. So when you break that innate principle, and you blind people into thinking that, oh yeah, we're equal, we're the same, we're interchangeable, we're identical, so I can be like him. And then everything else that follows is wrong because it's based on the wrong premise. We're not the same. Men and women are not the same. That's been the most, the biggest injustice to human society, to convince people that we are identical. No. Men and women have different hormones. They experience life differently. They think differently. They rest differently. They relax differently. They need different things. What's good for one might be helpful for the other, but what one needs will hurt the other. So that's been one of the biggest lies, and it's been intentional because there's a lot of course, that's not the focus of this talk, but I just want to emphasize that morally bad actions are by definition intentional. This is something that really needs to be taken in. When somebody commits an action that is not good, that is harmful, either to self or to others or both, by definition, that action, that behavior is intentional, is deliberate, it is thought through. It is not random, it is not accidental. So this is very important because one of the tendencies in our time is in the world today is to extract intention out of behavior, and that's not good. That's not good at all. So things don't just happen. A door doesn't just open. You have to have a hand on the doorknob. So intention is action. The Buddha says intention is action. So that's as a side note. But coming back to the big deception that we're living in right now, and it's so predominant, it's so common that gradually very gradually it has become almost invisible. Now we take it as a given. So in this talk, I just want to emphasize a few elements, a few of the errors of feminism, or the damaging consequence of this flawed worldview that was sold to women and the world at large, not for anyone's benefit, by the way, but for the benefit of those in power, those who, tax the human population, and many, many other factors involved. What we have today is families where you would, at first glance look and say, yeah, there is equality. The man works 8 hours a day, the woman works 8 hours a day. They have completely distorted the division of tasks, making everyone do everything else, making men wash the dishes, care for the baby, change the diaper, and then the woman making her lift heavy things, do construction work, become a CEO, act, very, what's the word? There are these courses where they teach women how to be affirmative, or I'm forgetting the word, but just masculine, go get it type of energy, and which is completely unnatural for women. Now, what needs to be really emphasized also is not that men are not capable of doing those things. Absolutely not. And similarly, women are also very capable of doing all of the things that men do. But that's not the question. It's not a question of capacity. It's not a question of ability. That is childish. That is reductionist. That is so unfair to the wholeness of the humanity in its feminine and masculine qualities. Because the question is, does the person feel good doing those things before, during, and after? Is that thing, that action, that behavior, that way of interacting with the world, is that hormonally beneficial? And when we say hormones are everything. It's the quality of your life. It has to do with sense of well-being. It has nothing to do with your blood work, where you might come across a list of numbers and they tell you, oh yeah, everything is in range, you're healthy, you're good, but you're almost disabled or miserable or very unhappy in your relationships or life in general. Your liver is overwhelmed because you're working 10 hours a day like a man, you're not resting, you're too goal-oriented, you're lifting heavy things, you're not wearing a dress, you're wearing pants. And just to, for some people this might come across a bit strange to mention this, but this is very important. As I was saying earlier, women have been turned into men. They have been told that, and they bought this, of course. I do not want to remove responsibility, but when you don't know what you're dealing with, you don't know what you're dealing with. So many of us, including myself, years ago, through mostly the government education system in schools, that's where the propaganda really gradually seeps in and becomes so much part of the fabric of how you think, how you behave, how you talk, what you do, that it can become very difficult to undo that program. But it's possible once you allow yourself to question things and look around. I think one need not take anyone's word for this. Just look around. Just look around at women, for example, in your life, in your workplace, in your family, in your friends. See how many of them are really happy, content, relaxed, happy, smiling, joyful, creative. I highly doubt that you will have many, if any, actually. because, you know, the cortisol, the stress hormone, which is an important part of human physiology, biology. It has its specific timing when it needs to be generated by the body. This is one example in how the female body and the male body function very differently, and that their needs are very different. When a man engages in a task, a goal, something that he wants to achieve, and he puts in effort, he bonds with that thing through effort. And that's, hormonally, you have oxytocin being generated through that. Vasopressin, I'm so sorry. Vasopressin is being generated through that effortful engagement with a specific task, in the case of a man. And while that person, that man, is striving to achieve his goal, it will take time, of course, energy, sacrifice, physical hard work probably, mental work, effort of all kinds. And once, through that process, stress is generated, cortisol is generated. And once that person, that man, achieves the goal, there is enormous sense of fulfillment, enormous sense of accomplishment. And we can examine, we can test this physiologically through the release of cortisol, and then the relaxation, heart rate, breathing, all kinds of indicators, blood work that can show this nervous system experiencing fireworks, basically, because of accomplishing that goal. So cortisol basically runs its course, and there is a reward for that person. Now, put the female body in that same position, in that same experience, and have her do those same tasks that generate cortisol, stress. There's a goal that she's working towards, and it's really stressful. She has to put effort, time, energy, and finally she's able to accomplish, and there's no reward. There is no reward. Why? Or there is very slight reward. I'm sure there's some reward because at least you're done with the thing, but nowhere near the extent, the amount of satisfaction that would be generated in the male body, because the woman's relaxation reward takes place through the hormone oxytocin, not vasopressin. So cortisol, when it runs its cycle, it does not leave the woman fulfilled, because her pathway of gaining that sense of fulfillment comes through nurturing behaviors, which are what generate oxytocin, such as looking after someone, a being that you love. It could be a plant, it could be a pet, it could be, of course, your child, someone else's child, your husband, your brother, your father, your mother, anyone, a human being that you're looking after, that you're nurturing, that you're loving through action. And that is what generates this hormone oxytocin in a woman, and that is what really nourishes her femininity, makes her really relaxed, joyful, and fulfills so many human needs, such as being useful, being helpful, being part of a community, contributing to the well-being of another. So this is one major difference that has been completely erased from the perception of humanity almost today, most people at least, where unfortunately there has been an equal sign placed between men and women, and as a result degrading both, because again, nothing stands in isolation in nature. And so if the feminine is damaged, is perverted, is distorted, the masculine is already distorted. Because a man the energy, the health, the hormonal, physiological health, again, is dependent on the female to be feminine. And vice versa, the feminine is dependent on the man. So again, nothing is independent. This whole independence idea is a big lie. No one is independent. And let's put the person aside. Hormones are interdependent. Interdependence begins from our very biology, from our very biochemistry. We know this through the hormonal work. For example, in the morning when you expose your eyes to sunlight, that generates dopamine and serotonin. And because of that, at night when the sun is down and there is darkness, then your body, thanks to the serotonin and the dopamine in the morning, now it generates melatonin. So it's all dependent arising, causality. One leads to the other, one contributes to the other, one is because of the other. There's no independence, there's no standalone, I can do this all by myself. No, that's a big lie. And that is a lie that not just destroys health, it destroys happiness. Because it blinds people into the fact that they should not, unless they absolutely have to due to circumstances, but they should not, for example, live alone. Or if they have to, completely deny and clip away the interactional needs that they have, such as eye contact, such as eating with someone, not eating alone, human touch, physical touch, conversation, just being in someone's life in a way that contributes to the betterment of that person's life. So that's just one example. Just a few more basic daily examples of interactional, ways in which in which healthy balance is maintained between the male and the female. For example, if a man opens the door for a woman, in that very instance, and granted the woman gracefully accepts that beautiful gesture, in that moment, his testosterone is being balanced. Her estrogen, progesterone is being balanced. In that instant, instantaneously. Imagine, no, it's free. You didn't buy any supplements. You didn't see a doctor. You didn't go through any fancy interventions. Completely free. Hormonal rebalancing, equilibrium, adjustment, alignment. So in that give and take interactional exchange, there's health, there's sense of alignment. Similarly, let's say if a man were to carry a heavy bag that a woman was carrying, in that very instance, again, granted the female gracefully and thankfully accepts that generosity and leans back into her feminine energy and receives. Receiving is not passive, by the way. This is another delusion that we have been told, that to receive is to be weak, to be passive, to be, inferior. Nonsense. Completely the opposite, because that receiving is giving, actually, because you are allowing, you're enabling, you are making room for the giver to experience health. And through receiving, you're also experiencing health. You're experiencing relaxation, you're experiencing ease. And that's not passivity. If many women today were truly to understand the power in receiving gracefully, relationships would be saved, marriages would be saved, homes would again become places of harmony and refuge, not strife and competition and tension and conflict, and every day, deciding who does what, who does more or less, and keeping checklists, and that's ridiculous. What needs to happen is we need to come back to our innate inclinations and put aside all the cultural so-called fairness propaganda, and just lean back into what's natural, what comes natural to me. What is it that I really enjoy? Let's put all the labels aside. Is it inferior, superior? That's all man-made, that's engineered, that's artificial, has nothing to do with nature. Just listen to your body. Do I enjoy cooking? Am I enjoying cleaning the house? Am I enjoying sewing or doing crochet or just sitting and doing nothing or playing with the children? Of course, another factor here is very important, is the ability to rest, having time to rest. A woman cannot be healthy if she doesn't have time to rest. Physiologically, her body, because of the cortisol being dominant, produce too much, the liver will really struggle to detox. And then of course we have all these moodiness and depression, monthly things taking place with the female cycle. And we have been lied to on that front as well, by being told that it's natural. Yeah, it's part of being woman. No, nothing could be further from the truth. There is absolute certainty. We know from tribes in the world today still, which are not colonized, there are very few of them left. But we know for sure that that's completely unnatural. Women in those communities who live aligned with nature in their relationships too, have very little pain during their monthly cycles. They do not become moody. They do not become irritable, aggressive, angry at one moment and then crying at another. No, those roller coasters are completely due to hormonal disbalances, mainly having to do with an extremely overloaded liver, which is unable to detox hormones, balance them, and so the body is a big mess. And therefore all those symptoms, they're not natural, they're not normal. Again, just because something is common does not make it normal or natural. So going back to the examples of, giving and receiving, again, it's like a dance. Imagine a dance where both lead. it doesn't work. Lead and follow, yin yang, two hands of the same body, day and night. We have countless examples in nature, in just principles of life, which show that what is healthy and what is unhealthy. So, other things, for example, women today are told, under the premise that, oh yeah, you're just like men, so yeah, you should exercise like men, lift heavy things, run, do sports, martial arts, or physical sports that are more masculine. So, and then for men, vice versa, actually, you should wash the dishes, you should look after the children, you should clean, you should sit down and talk to me for an hour as if you were, women. That's another actually difference, because men and women, we don't process information in the same way. For example, for women, it's more conversational, verbal expression. And that's why modern day therapy is a disaster for men, because it's based on talk therapy. It's a feminine form of processing information, of psychotherapy. But the male physiology does not work. It makes men very feminine. And it overproduces in them estrogen, which makes men very aggressive and unhappy and violent and depressed, actually. So a combination of those. So then these tasks that traditionally have been done by women are now being forced upon men, and vice versa, tasks that have been traditionally done by men are now being forced on women. And the result is what we have. It's a disaster. It's a disaster because You have women who are no longer attractive to men because, like I said in the beginning, they walk like men, they talk like men, they dress like men. When was the last time you saw a woman wearing a skirt or a dress? And by the way, that also affects our hormones. You dress like a man, you are going to feel like a man because your hormones respond to how you interact with the world. That involves how you dress, how you talk, how you sit, what you do, who you spend time with. So it's all interactional on a very mundane level up to other layers of interaction. So then, as I was saying, so women have become unattractive to men because the levels in their bodies, testosterone is so high. Even their voice actually is different. They talk like, the voice is coarser, the voice is very different. It's not a feminine voice. So, and then vice versa, men have become very feminine, unattractive to women who are healthy still. And the all in all result of that is a separation, a distance between men and women. That has been the agenda, to separate. That means separating families, pushing people into a type of lifestyle where they think they got it all, they are independent, and guess what? That gap is being filled by the screen. Again, not random at all. So when you really pull back and look at the bigger picture, this is very, very bad. But when one knows what's really going on, every single moment, through very simple gestures, like I was saying, how we dress, how we talk, how we interact, receiving, allowing, aligning with nature in very simple ways, and resting, things will very quickly change. That's the beauty about the hormones. They respond to the present moment right now. You don't need to take supplements necessarily, or there are many ways, of course, but my approach here is to really highlight the principle of interdependence. And we need to make peace with this principle. It is not the enemy. Interdependence is nature. To deny interdependence is to deny yourself. You look at ecosystems, everyone depends on another being. Every single organism depends on another, whether in the environment, whether in the nutrition, whether in all the different conditions that they need for life. Everyone lives in dependency. Why on earth, how on earth did we eat this bait that we were independent, that we did not need each other, that we could just be men, women, mother, father, brother, sister, everything to ourselves and be happy and healthy? Yes, look around. So, knowledge is power. When we know, when we have the right information, when we have the right education, everything will change. Nothing will be the same. So small gestures, when someone opens the door for you, please, I'm talking to women here, gracefully accept. When they want to lift your bags, gracefully accept. Not that you can't do those things, absolutely. Again, please, let's put that misconception on the side once and for all. This is not a matter of ability. No one is being insulted or looked down upon as less or more or inferior or superior. Absolutely not. If I were to use the example of ancestral tribes and cultures still on this planet, which do experience this harmonious interaction that I'm trying to capture, describe, there is absolutely no sense of competition. In fact, there is beautiful respect that each side has towards the other, because they're fulfilling tasks that they, let's say the male is doing something that the female may not do very well, and vice versa. The female is doing the task that the male is not that good at, and so everyone is grateful. They respect each other because they're fulfilling a need for the well-being of the whole, of the family, of the relationship, of the community. And everyone is happy. It's a win-win situation. It's very simple, actually. There's no competition, there's no rivalry, there's no dominance, suppression. All these have been lies. Now, of course, common sense, human decency, that never loses its validity. So there are times, situations when there is abuse, there is violence, there is mistreatment. Absolutely, those have to be seen and acknowledged as such, and something has to be done about them. But that doesn't mean that we have to allow these powers to convince us, these ideologies that are very harmful. Men are not the enemy for women, and women are not the enemy for men. We have to really step back and look at the bigger picture and see who is really benefiting from this disharmony, conflicts. And one of the damages actually has been motherhood has been outsourced, has been completely fragmented into these, as if technical dead tasks. Okay, you outsource the childcare, okay, school, daycare, and then you if you can afford to bring someone to clean your house, wash the dishes, okay, and then where is the woman? Where is the feminine? Where is the nurturing? So the nurturing tasks, which are part of health, which are essential, they're obligatory. They're not they're not optional. So that which brings joy to a woman has been stolen from her in the name of freedom, in the name of equality. And let's look at that freedom and equality. Okay, a woman is in the office, let's say, she works 8 to 10 hours a day. She comes home, she's exhausted. She's been stressed all day long, high cortisol, now she needs to relax. Guess what? No relaxation. Now she has to do the nurturing tasks, the nurturing to look after the child or the house, to cook. But she's exhausted, and she will not do those things with a joyful attitude. And then her whole physiology, biochemistry is a big mess, because now she'll feel resentment and she will direct that to the male in the house. And from then that point on, we know what usually happens: chronic tension, and then a divorce, or affairs, or addictions, and then hostility overall. So many women, unfortunately, I've come across in my life who hate men, and this is really sad and dangerous. So, and I'm not even talking about the bigger damages to society as a whole when a woman is absent, let's say, from making sure that her family eats healthy food. And ancestrally, traditionally, that has been the woman's authority, her power. The health of her family was in her hands, not in some corporation, junk food, thing. No, she was in charge. She knew what she was cooking, where the food was coming, and who was cooking, because whoever makes the food puts all of her energy imprint into that food. And so you have to love the person for whom you're cooking. And you get your food from restaurants or anywhere, big corporations, supermarkets. Good luck to get that energy, loving energy, that metta in the food. So I know I'm branching out, but just to start this conversation, there's more in terms of the examples and situations, but let's start where we are and gradually develop a fuller picture of what's really happening, and slowly reclaim our natural right to being healthy and not outsource that to any ideology or divisive ideology, especially because we have to be very careful. Again, if you're being told something that makes you hate someone, pull back. That makes you become angry, pull back. And always come back to the principle of interdependency, the principle of interaction, one leading to the other, one contributing to the other, because we've forgotten that the family is an organism. Individuals are, you could think of as different organs, different or systems, let's say the circulatory, the digestive, the vascular system, the hormonal system. It contributes to the health of the whole. So each part needs to be humble. Each part needs to acknowledge that they are part of a whole. They cannot function independently. It's not an emotional or psychological or spiritual judgment here at all. It's completely it's a surrender to nature in the most wholesome sense of the word. Granted, it has not been interfered with, distorted or perverted. We're talking about that type of nature. So and small things in everyday life, and you will taste the results immediately. Sukiyoto.